This is Marlou here.
Ashley.
You know how it goes. We are the professionals. We are back with another episode. We'll get into our very special guest, Monique Dunn. But before that, we will get into our gratitude. Whew. Gratitude. I think I'll start. I'll get into it.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just been a lot of transitioning but in a good way, like in ways that I had asked for, even certain things from like 5 years ago that I've asked for. And yes, and it's coming to fruition. And it's just like, this is new, but this is exciting and I feel prepared. And I'm like, all right, Lord, you just better make sure you're right there next to me on this walk. Because things are different. They're new, but I like it and I'm happy that I'm in a space where I can embrace it, accept it, and just like go with it. So I'm grateful for that growth and dreams realized, even if they're 5 years later.
Yes. I think it's just time, right? We just never know the when. Like, when is it happening? I wanted this, but it's just all when timing like comes together with that. I love that. And I love transitions. They're scary, but they're exciting. So I love that for you. What I'm grateful for is actually just going away to Costa Rica. I thought you were going to go and take that one, Marlou, but I'll take that one.
No.
That's a big one.
I am grateful. Yeah. I'm grateful for going to Costa Rica, really spending time in that country that we've been both wanting to visit for some time. The locals were wonderful. The places are beautiful. Food is great. It gave me some time to reset and reevaluate and pivot if needed to new and better things. I had that time to myself to kind of relax and think of things for the future. So I'm excited for that moment of like that pause and reflect moment. So yes. Yeah.
For sure.
And then Monique, tell us what you're grateful for.
Moment of gratitude for us.
I'm grateful for a lot of things right now. Yeah, I think there's a slight delay. So if I just seemed like I was staring into thin air, that's why. I'm grateful for a lot of things. Today, I'm just feeling really grateful for my team. I have a really wonderful team at Destination Therapy. We're a small team, but we're small and mighty. And it's just the little things, like the way that we encourage each other, the way that we check in with one another, the little moments of humor that we can have, like we send voice notes to each other in Slack. And yesterday, one of the therapists was sending me a voice note, and we're obviously just so comfortable with each other because she was obviously cooking in the background. And in the end, I just had to reply, girl, what are you cooking? Because you banging these dishes so loudly. Like, what is going on? And I was like, that's so nice that we're just like in our flow and we've built these relationships where we feel comfortable, doing what we need to do while we're sending our voice notes. So yeah, just feeling really grateful for my team and the work we do and the sense of community that we're building together.
I love that.
I love that.
I love that small community you guys have with each other.
Yeah.
But before we even get into all about the Destination Therapy and your services, we have Monique Dunn here with us. She's a licensed clinical social worker. And our episode is about the imposter syndrome that I feel like many of our fellow professionals who follow us may encounter or experience. So let's talk about it. Let's just get right into it. So let's just go simple and just really talk about what is the imposter syndrome. Let's just start there for those who do not know.
I love how you say the imposter syndrome. Like it's the thing, Sounds really scary. Yeah, I think imposter syndrome, it's something that can show up in so many different ways. But the way that I think of it is this like overall looming feeling, this sense that I'm not good enough, I'm undeserving of my achievements, I'm not as great as people think. And I'm afraid that someone's going to find out. Like, I'm trying to live this lie, I'm trying to live up to what people think, but deep down, I feel like an imposter. I feel like I don't belong here. And that's not a good feeling. And I think it's something as a therapist that I see a lot. I work with a lot of professionals. And I think when you get to a certain level of education or professional success, whatever we're deeming success, it can really creep up. So it's something we really want to look out for and hopefully work on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how is it portrayed in people, I guess, in a professional setting or, in their day-to-day life?
Like, what does it look like?
Yeah, how does it look like in some people?
Yeah, I think, people struggling with imposter syndrome, it leads to a lot of self doubt and self questioning. And so, there's that phrase, remember who you are. I think a lot of the process of overcoming it is remembering like how great you actually are, what you've actually achieved, what you've done to deserve a seat at all the tables that you get to sit at. And so it can show up at work, can show up in your family, in your relationships. You can have imposter syndrome. People might think of it as like a professional thing, but you can have imposter syndrome in your relationship. It can come up thinking that maybe you don't deserve this kind of love. Maybe I don't deserve these kind of friends. Maybe I didn't deserve this life that I have, right? So it can show up by the questioning. That's where it shows up. And so if you're experiencing that or you know someone who has that habit of questioning, then that's something we want to look out for because it can lead to anxiety, depression, self criticism, and it can just kind of spiral from there.
Can we talk about how it seems to be, very prevalent in, people with higher education or, women of color professionals, and like, why is that?
Let's talk about it. Absolutely. I mean, I think we live in this society where our value as human beings, especially in the United States, is often based on our accomplishments or society's perceived accomplishments, right? So whether that's work, whether that's wealth, whether that's education, whether that's family, don't get me started on women being asked about when they're going to have kids, right? Whether that's fame, how many followers you have, all of these things are like credits that our society adds as value. And so I think that has a huge piece that, it contributes massively to how we feel about our value and our worth and what we deserve. And as minorities, I think we're often taught that we don't need, that we need to work harder than our white counterparts. As women or femmes, we might be taught that we aren't as smart or we won't be as valued as our male counterparts. And I think that starts at a really young age. So like culturally, we're just absorbing all these messages. I need wealth. I need this job. I need this family, this education. And then we get there. What do we do with it? It's hard to feel like we deserve it.
Ooh.
So by the time we get to university or, you get your like badass boss job in some professional or corporate setting, we might have already internalized a lot of these values, which can impact our sense of belonging, this idea of where we deserve to be or what we deserve to have. But we do deserve a seat at the table. And so not feeling our belonging and our
Yes.
value and our place in this world really affects our well-being and our mental health and our relationships, I
think. Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because I feel that I have to, at work, always make sure I am perfect. I have to make sure I'm perfect. I have to do it right because I'm the Black woman there. So I have to show my worth 10 times more, 20 times more if I can. I have to make sure I am the one who stands out, and it took a long time for me to try to realize what I'm trying to do, although I still battle with it some days. Just sharing how I deal with it, just because it's just been so ingrained in me that, listen, you have to do it X, Y, and Z. You make sure you shine. You're a Black woman. And it's always been ingrained in me to make sure I am perfect. And it shows off in every other sector of my life, not just work. I feel like now this is more like good girl syndrome almost in a way. Like I feel like I have to be good and perfect in every sector of my life too as well. Like and I'm so hard on myself because of that as well. So I'm so happy that you like even mentioned how this affects, us in different ways, as well,
Thank you for sharing
especially as
that.
professional women. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And I mean,
speaking of
what is perfect?
perfectionism,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, it's true. And I feel that that's what I've been realizing over the years. I'm like, what is perfect? What is it? And I feel like that has helped my anxiety in the workplace, in my personal life, in other sectors of my life, because I was always wound up with like anxiety, just aiming to be perfect. So, yeah. So, speaking
Yeah.
of perfectionism, how can it, speaking of that as well, my anxiety, I was mentioning, like, how can perfectionism affect our mental health in other ways, besides
Well,
anxiety? Is there anything else?
yeah. I want to go back to what you said,
Yeah.
just about this idea that feeling like you have to be perfect. And for me, it's hard to talk about imposter syndrome without talking about institutionalized racism, without talking about internalized racism, and without talking about perfectionism. So the fact that you brought perfectionism in, I think is perfect, because I think, that messaging that you received, a lot of minorities receive that kind of messaging. And I think our parents and our caregivers give that messaging with love, right? Because they want us to survive and they want us to do well, but it's really unfair, right? And it's from the fact that we're having to navigate within this system that is institutionally racist, right? Whether it's our work system, our political system, our education system. So I just want to honor that, what you're saying, but also, you know, remembering why we're given that message, that it's a message that's unfair, but it's like often given with love, but it had so much weight,
Yeah.
so much weight, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So
So,
much weight.
yeah.
I think it's so interesting that, especially nowadays, when Black women are the most educated in the United States, like I feel like maybe 10 years ago, I didn't know this term. But now that I do, and I feel like it's almost like as we're making greater strides, this is coming out more into the forefront.
Absolutely. Oh, it's coming out. The majority of the minority women that I see as a therapist, they're coming to me because I serve clients with anxiety, perfectionism, and burnout. That's why they're here. And we booked some busy. So it's happening. It's everywhere, right? And we need support. Like it's a lot to carry.
Yeah.
So going to your question actually about like how perfectionism can affect our mental health, I think while it isn't a mental illness, we use something called the DSM-5 to diagnose, right? We get our little purple book out. And if you have a mental health diagnosis or you're going to a therapist and using your insurance, they're going to pick one from that book, right? So while it's not considered, you're not going to see perfectionism in there. It's a common factor in some mental health challenges like OCD, anxiety, depression, low
Yeah.
self-esteem, low criticism, self-criticism. It all, they can intertwine. And I think a key trend is that perfectionists tend to judge themselves very, very harshly, especially when they're experiencing what they consider failure. And I say what they consider because that's very subjective, right? But it can still feel like the end of the world.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just wondering too, in the midst of all that too, like social anxiety as well. How does that like overlap with imposter syndrome too? Because
Yeah.
that's
So this is something I was thinking about before our call, like social anxiety. I think some people think of social anxiety as like, oh, I just can't be in big groups or like get on a stage or something. But it can show up in different ways, right? Sometimes it's a little more discreet. And so I wrote some notes. I was trying to think about how they overlap. So I think there's three different types of perfectionism, right? So you've got like the self-oriented perfectionism where it's more directed at you, yourself, and that we can, you got a therapist on your podcast. And like that's linked with caregiver criticism or a sense of rejection from your caregivers, right? Which hopefully, if you go to therapy, you can explore that more, right? So we've absorbed criticism from other people. And because of that, we can like end up being a very harsh sense of judgment on ourselves. We lend that harsh sense of judgment on ourselves. Then there's like the other focused perfectionism. And this is where we might try and get somebody else to be perfect. Maybe that's what our parents were doing to us, right? So you've got these unrealistic expectations and demands on these other people, usually to avoid our own pain. And that can look like micromanaging, that can look like being maybe a little controlling. And then we've got like the more socially prescribed perfectionism. So this comes from either real or imagined beliefs about what other people expect from you, right? So I've got these ideas about what Ashley and Lou expect of me, right? And so I think I need to meet those expectations every single day, every single moment to get approval, to be accepted, to have a sense of belonging. And sometimes those ideas we have aren't even based in reality. We just think everyone expects these things of us. And I think that third type of perfectionism, that socially prescribed perfectionism, can definitely increase that sense of imposter syndrome and how you view yourself socially, which then I think can impact the social anxiety. So it's a very long-winded answer, but I think like I see you nodding that like breaking it down that way, it makes complete sense why it would impact your level of anxiety, right? Especially socially. If you're walking around thinking all of these people have these expectations of me.
Ooh.
That is a vicious cycle.
It is, but it can be broken. But it is.
It can be.
There's hope.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because like that last one, like I feel like it's almost like you're kind of people pleasing in a way, right? Like you're trying to really accommodate or put yourself in a way that you're having a sense of belonging and just being wanted, and you're really this can get messy. Just thinking about it, just that.
Go ahead, go there. What can it do?
Like even it can go into like even codependency. Like it's just all interwoven. I just see how it can be all interwoven. How you're making me realize how much the imposter syndrome can really be multifaceted, and it really affects many areas in our lives. For sure.
Yeah. And I think, it's not about chicken or the egg. It's like if you're experiencing these things, if left unchecked, like it can lead to other issues, right? It can lead to you not doing well.
Wow. So we were talking about how it can be fixed.
I'm blown away.
We were talking about how it can be fixed, or you were mentioning that. So how can one start working on better coping mechanisms?
Yeah.
With this?
I think there's lots of different things that we can do to try and combat it. And if someone's listened to this podcast and they've stayed tuned to this point, if they are struggling with this, hopefully that means that it's in their awareness, right? And I think practicing mindfulness is an incredible tool that anyone can use. Learning to listen to the voice in your head without doing everything it tells you to do. Being mindful and learning to pause before acting on whatever that impulse is, to people please or to do something because of an expectation we're putting on ourselves or we think others are putting on us. That can help us pause and make better decisions that are actually healthier for us. And over time, mindfulness is a great practice. There's apps, there's YouTube. You can speak to a therapist who will help teach you mindfulness-based skills, but you can learn to look at, that internal dialogue more objectively and stop believing the negative things that it might be telling you, right? Because that's what we want. Having the thought is one thing. Acting on it and believing it is where we can really lose ourselves and experience more serious symptoms of mental health conditions. So I think mindfulness would be my first suggestion. I'm going to talk about therapy, but the second one I'll say is moving your body. How the heck does moving your body connect to perfectionism and imposter syndrome? What's going on? But I think exercise can be a form of mindfulness, being attuned with your body, maybe being attuned with some symptoms of anxiousness, if you're struggling socially, like being attuned with your body. And it can help calm your mind and exhaust any excess anxious energy that could maybe be feeding perfectionism or feeding your anxiety or feeding your depression. So just for general like well-being, I think moving your body doesn't have to be a spin class, it doesn't have to be a 10-mile run, but just going for a walk, getting off your phone, looking at the trees, right? That would be another thing that I would suggest, and I suggest to like all of my clients if they're able to also do.
I love that. I love
Mm-hmm.
that. I feel that
Yeah.
something that we should all try to incorporate in our lives, just that routine, just that mindfulness and taking a step back, moving our bodies. It really helps us holistically in itself too as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously, I can't talk about these things without putting a plug for therapy, right?
Yes. Yes.
Going to
Please
see a
go ahead.
therapist who you feel gets you, who can hold space for you without judgment, who can help you process maybe some of the prior experiences that have maybe contributed to how you're feeling, how you view yourself, your relationships, your relationship with yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
if this is an issue, then to get a better handle of your inner critic. So I think just noticing and stopping negative thoughts and behaviors that might be limiting your happiness, limiting your sense of self-worth, and getting insight into like your self-criticism, finding ways to release that and have less negative self-talk is huge. I believe that's a really great way to utilize therapy. And there's still a lot of stigma, I think, especially within minority communities around seeking out support for your mental health. But like we're doing it. There's Black
Yes.
therapists, there's all types of BIPOC
Yes.
therapists, there's white therapists, there's LGBTQ plus therapists. I think finding a therapist that you can just feel seen can make a lot of a difference.
It, oh, it can.
And we know you are doing that great, great work at Destination Therapy.
Thank you. I love what we
And
do. It's
please
so great.
tell us the services you have.
Yeah. So I know y'all are in New York. I actually used to live in New York and I moved to Houston a couple of years ago and last year launched Destination Therapy. And I wanted it to be a place where clients can come. And I mean, you go on our website, it's right there. This is anti-racist practice. We provide culturally affirming care. And it's one thing saying it, but I want people to feel it. So I try to be very intentional in the care that we provide, in the trainings we go to, in the way that we talk about our clients. And we provide individual therapy, we provide couples therapy for clients in the states of New York, Texas, and Massachusetts right now. I'm about to start hiring again, so maybe it'll be more states, but we're based in Houston. But hello, telehealth. So we can serve clients in any of the states where, as licensed providers, we are
Right.
licensed. Thank goodness. And yeah, we love what we do. We have a dope little small team. We're slowly growing, and I'm doing that slowly, intentionally to build a space where clinicians can feel safe too and feel valued because a lot of therapists are burnt out and I'm not trying to do that to people.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
I
So
love
if you're
it.
struggling with anxiety, burnout, perfectionism, identity issues, any of those things, especially stuff we talked about today, then destination therapy might be a fit. And we offer free consultations. So often, if we have a client who's not a good fit, we don't just leave them in the lurch. We'll try and give them a couple of referrals or point them in the right direction. We're all about finding the right fit, not just getting as many clients as possible. Individualized care is really important to us. So if you're not sure, just book a free consultation and see if we can help you. I think that's like the big step is just reaching out to someone. So we're here to help.
And tell us, where can we find you?
Yes. So our website is destinationtherapy.com. So finding us on our website is probably the easiest way to connect with us, read the clinician bios, see who you want to book with. You can book instantly. You can look at our schedules. It's all connected. It's super easy. We try to make it as easy as possible. And then we also have Instagram. We'll link that as well. And you can feel free to reach out to us. And, we want to help people get help. So whether it's for you, someone you care about, you have our info.
Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Let us know your thoughts. Please reach out to the Destination Therapy if you feel like you have any needs. So let us know, everyone. Join us on the conversation below. Like, subscribe, comment, and
we want any thoughts.
Thank you, Monique, for joining us.
Thank you.
Until next time, everyone.